What's up? What's up? What's up? What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Kingdom Diplomat, Tyreek. Hopefully, hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully you had a great day today. And the fact of the matter that you're watching this is very applaudable. Kudos to you. Thank you for taking the time out, guys, to tune in to me. And I'm sure this channel, this educational channel, um, is educating you on things that you probably didn't think you would. Well, probably most people didn't know, just like I didn't know years and years ago. And because a lot of this information has transformed my life, and hopefully it'll transform your life, spirit, soul, and body, and make you a better human being, make you a better citizen. Um, and I use that term loosely, and make you a better American, rather, and then also a better family member, a help mate, or a mate. And hopefully, this information that I've gone over this last 6, 7, 8 months now um, will bear some fruit for you and your family. Excuse me 1 second. Let me go grab my drink real quick. So this will give you guys enough time to go grab something to drink, something to write down with, and write on. And I'm going to kind of get into some meat and potatoes over what I talked about yesterday and about 2 weeks ago. So I will be right back and get started in about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, guys, 60 seconds, 60 seconds. And I'm going to adjust towards the end of this podcast. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of teaching on the board. But for now, let me bring this down here so you guys can see me a little bit better. Here we go. There we go. There we go. What's up? All right, 30 more seconds, guys. 30 more seconds. Put your happy face on. If you're frowning right now, if you're angry, if you're mad, let it go. Let it go. Because we're going to have some fun and we're going to learn some things. And believe you me, I am an eternal student, and I believe I'm my number one student because when I'm teaching, I learn, I believe, the most. So, all right, well, we got about 15 more seconds to go. 15 more seconds. Notepad and pen. If you're new, please subscribe if you feel like that this will benefit you educationally. And if you've been here for a minute and follow me, I appreciate you guys so much. All right, all right, all right. So welcome, guys. Welcome. Again to episode, gosh, what episode am I on right now? I think it's like 30 something. I should have had that calculated. Anyway, since February 1st of 2025, so about 8 months now. Is that right? Almost 8 months. I started this podcast, and Thank you for the subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. I'm excited about this growing organically by itself. And hopefully you'll see my heart, my spirit, and my mind come through of compassion and genuineness. Um, you'll see, you know, my desire for you guys to not only learn about what I've learned over this last 25 years, not just from being from a natural standpoint and a business standpoint, operating multiple businesses right now, and just the last 25 years of my brain trust and pulling from being mentored by millionaires and multimillionaires and different people that have come across my path, in life, and things I've learned from them, things that I've researched. And I haven't said this in a while, but it bears repeating, is that, I don't like giving my opinion at all. And because I'm an ambassador, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the podcast. You'll understand what that mean by that. I'm sure you heard that term before, but do you understand what that actually really means? And the worst thing that I've learned in life is to know that something is wrong with something and really not know and pinpoint what it truly is, right? And knowing, for instance, that you're meant for more, not just what you're doing now, not to say that what you're doing now doesn't have any value, but it's just the fact of the matter that we have this scratch, right? I said this yesterday, in our soul, our mind, our will, our emotions, our intellect, the soulish part of our being, that we all have this knowing, right? That we're meant for more. And it's a bothersome thing. I think that's the most torturous thing that a human being can go through, and not finding out what that is. So hopefully over this last 8 months, those of you who have subscribed and those of you who are new to this podcast, Kingdom Diplomat podcast, it's all in the title. And I'm going to go through some of that, right? I said I was going to do that before. But let me just do a quick recap. And as I said before, if you're new, welcome, welcome, welcome. I guarantee you that you will get my authenticity, my genuineness, and I honestly care for each individual, and even the ones who maybe don't like me. Maybe there's some people who hate me, and there's people around the world, and even here in this country, that have evil and just hateful intentions. And it's hard for me to hate a human being, because I know for a fact, no, not a fact, I know for the truth, that each individual is made and has a purpose, no matter it was the billions of people before us, or currently the 8+ billion people right now, and then millions of people after us, right? Because human beings are being born every day. So my goal with this channel, as I like to state from time to time, is that it's to educate people on who they truly are. Why? Because I found out who I am, right? And it's not what anybody said in the natural. And that's extremely, extremely important, because people come into this world through the doorway to this planet, which is called the womb, right? That's why you call a woman, which is a man with a womb. And, the reason why I know that to be true is because I know the manufacturer, right? I know the creator personally. And that's what's so magnificent about, this journey, being a child of God, being a kingdom citizen. And I'm going to delve into that a little bit later on, being an ambassador, because every product has a manufacturer, right? And and that inside that product, there's actual laws, right? And that's a perfect segue from yesterday and a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just going to kind of do a quick recap of law. Hopefully, you guys are taking notes. I recommend, as researchers say, when you're listening to this for the first time, guess what? You're probably going to attain maybe about 15 to 20%. Okay. But when you go over something audio wise and you take notes every time you listen to something over and over again, you gain another 10 to 15, some people as much as 20%, just depending upon your mental capacity. Okay. And perhaps maybe later on, I'll share with you why we're only operating on 7 to 10% of our mental capacity. Okay. So hopefully you guys like my Giants. Any Giants fans out there? East Coast, West Coast, worldwide. Anybody? Put 1-4 in the chat box, please. I know, we're like 0-3, but it's all good. But I'm a fan. I've been a fan since I was like 8 or 9 years old, somewhere around that area. So hopefully my Mets are doing well. Hopefully they make the playoffs because they're stinking these last few games. But anyway, all right. So, all right. This is something a little bit more practical. Like I like to get into some definitions because as I told you guys before, guess what? Words are everything. Words in it's either the Latin or the Hebrew means the expressed idea. That's what a word means. Expressed idea. Okay. So how you see yourself and how you see the world. Okay. Now, this world, as I said before yesterday, is governed or was governed by a king, and his name is Christ. Now, if you follow me for the first time, the first thing you're probably going to say is, oh man, you talking about that religious guy. Well, no, I can already, if you say something like that, if you think something like that, and it may not even, that thought may not even came from you, and that's a whole nother topic in itself because we all got there's all different kind of voices that are speaking to us all the time, right? Remember I said that we're a triune being, a spirit, soul, and body, and did you know that most of the world doesn't even know that? Most of the world believes that they're just a bag of meat and bones, flesh. Now, it's true when you look it up, it's only worth maybe about $20, but being in this body on this planet is extremely important because it gives you and I authority and power. What did I say? Authority and power meant? Authority is the legal right. Okay. The legal right to make decisions and give commands. Power means the ability to control circumstances. Isn't that what every human being is looking for? Power, right? There was a song back in the 90s saying, I got the power, right? Why do you think they created that song? See, a lot goes into a song, writing a song, developing a song, getting the right people, and all that goes behind the scenes. I got the power, that song right there encompasses mankind. Okay. So when you look up the word human, you need to break it up, right? Because sometimes words are like grammatical constructs. It means you have a prefix and then you have a suffix. So you can have a prefix and you have the root word and it can attach it, which means a whole new meaning. And then you have a suffix at the end of that root word, right? And it can mean a whole new thing. Okay. So let's go over the definition again of law. Okay. What is a law? So the whole purpose of your existence and my existence is very simple. See, this is so simple. I was like, oh my gosh, we're making things so complicated. Mankind makes things so complex and so difficult, and that's one of the reasons why people die so young outside the things that happen externally is because we were designed, a manufacturer designs a product to work a simple way, right? A certain steps into as far as operations to work a simple way. So when you and I take a product and we use it against the manufacturer's, against the laws that's already programmed into the product, what do you think happens? The product breaks down or the product gets destroyed. So if you do that, right, you get this phone and you start throwing it in the air, and you drop it, right? And then you're going to try to get let's say you had insurance. That may not be a good example, but you get what I'm trying to say. And then you want to put in a claim, and you're like, well, what happened? Most people probably lie in that situation, But what do you think? The manufacturer did not put that in the phone to be regulated like that. So we will be in violation of laws. Okay. So laws, let me read that again, is basically a system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members in which it may enforce the by the imposition of penalties. Here's another one. That's the noun. Here's another one. I like this one. A rule defining correct procedure or behavior in a sport or in a country, right? It's fluid in those definitions. But a law is something that a king, when a king speaks, a king's word is law, right? Now, when a president speaks, when a prime minister speaks, under a democracy or a constitutional republic, it's not law. You see the difference? So that's why I say the Bible is not about a religion, right? We've already established what that means. If you don't know what that means, look it up, And what Christ wanted to do, he's not only that's just a title, okay? Christ means actually anointed king, and the king controls and owns a territory. So simply put, and I like saying this over and over and over again because I have to get this indelibly implanted into your mind. I have to keep reiterating this into my mind, right? In marketing, you see those pharmaceutical, petroleum products on TV, right? That they keep pushing. You see companies like Coca-Cola and all these other companies and everything like that. They want to keep their product at the forefront of your mind. Why? Because they want it indelibly implanted into your mind, right? There's a lot of things that you watch a movie. I'll give you a quick example. So they call this concept called blitz. So during the movies, if you remember this, depending upon how young you are, if you remember this back in the day, and I remember this, is before the movie starts, there's about 20 to 30 minutes of advertising, right? And see, when you're doing marketing and advertising, there's a lot of studying that goes in about the human psyche, right? How the brain works, emotions, all that stuff, color, size of the letters, lights, frequency, the words, all that stuff they're all intertwined to get you and I to what? You could have just ate a 5-course meal, but they blitzed popcorn, a drink, and something else by your face. You thought you saw it, but you didn't see it, but you did see it, right? It just blitz right across, and and it had you guessing, and then 20, 30 minutes later on into the movie, you're like, man, I'm hungry. They get kids really well, you know what I'm saying? That's why they start kids off young. They started all of us young with sugar and salt, right? Now look where that's gotten us 50, 60, 70, 80 years later. Most of the America is overweight, right? And their body's toxic, right? So we were born in the alkaline state, but that's a whole nother topic. So Christ when he speaks. So this let me give you an illustration of this right here. So see this right here? This is a document. Okay? This is not a religious book. This is a document. This right here is the NIV version. But that's a document of how the unseen, the spiritual realm, right? And the physical realm is governed. Everything is governed by the law. So you say, well, you know what? Well, why you have Moses in there? Why do you have these prophets and everything? Because that's how the manufacturer chose, right? Why is this phone operating a certain way? Why is your car operate a certain way? Why is your T-shirt or the emblem of the manufacturer on your shirt? Because that's what they wanted to sew into that product, to make that product out of. That's the manufacturer's mind. You get what I'm saying? Okay. So with that being said, he chose us, simply put, a king wanted to expand his kingdom. Okay, that's very simple. From the spiritual realm or the unseen realm, and everybody's very much acquainted with the unseen realm, where I'm at today, um, where I live at in North Carolina, it was kind of windy in the area that I live in, right? So the word wind means spirit. Okay, now we can see the effects of the wind and we can feel it with our physical body, right? We can touch that with our physical body, but we can't see it. You see what I'm saying? Hopefully I said that right. So we can feel it with our physical body, but we can't see the wind. So wind means spirit. Okay. And so he wanted to expand his territory. Now follow me now. Do a little bit of research on kingdom concepts, and you will understand that that book I just showed you is not a religious book. It's about a kingdom and about his offspring called mankind expanding from the spiritual realm into what? The natural realm, the physical realm. So he took us out of himself, as I said before, just like a father implanted a seed into the mother, right? The soil, right? And when the seed and the egg meet, voila, you got us. So we were literally a little spirit with a soul forming in a body in our mother's womb, just like a seed, a banana seed, a pumpkin seed, a watermelon seed. So the image of me was partly put, they call it the embryo, and that made me, right? Okay. So with that being said, he wanted to, he basically got bored, God being bored. Yeah. No, no. So what does a king, I'm just kidding, sort of, but what does a king desire to do? A king desires essentially to have offspring. Okay, that's called mankind, which was entitled Adam. That's where we all came out of, right? I can't say this enough. I'm going to keep reiterating over. There's some of you who've been following me for quite some time. It's like, man, I heard that already. No, you haven't heard that. See, it's your attitude. It's how you see and hear things. I've heard certain things over and over again, 50, 100 times, 1,000 times. Like I read that document at least 2 or 3 times from front to back, from Genesis to Revelations, right? And I've read certain books and certain documents in that Constitution over and over and over again. I'm talking about the Bible over and over again. After about it's like every 20, 30 times that I read something, I start to get the context, like the whole picture, right? You can't just take stuff out of context. That's one of the reasons why people get in trouble. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why you have so many religions, is because all these religions actually are based upon Abraham. I don't know if you guys know that, but they're taken out of context, right? That's why you have so many denominations just within Christianity, and that doesn't include, Islam and all the other religions out there and all the other smaller religions and stuff like that. All that stuff comes from that document right there. So when I found that out, I was like, whoa, okay. So where was I at? So yes, a king made offspring, kings, small caps. Okay, that's us, right? And he said, let us make man in our image. Let them, right? Let them, not us. Okay, he's not talking about himself. He's talking about us. Let them have dominion. So it's in the Hebrew, it's manlakak, rada. That means dominion. Dominion means to dominate, power. Okay, and people say, man, I need some power right now. Well, that's what I'm trying to explain to you right now. I'm telling you, this you want to talk about freedom? Here's the illusion here in America. Here's the illusion that we're free. Freedom means liberty. Dome means dominion. Free from liberty. See, we thought that meant I'm free. Nobody can tell me what to do. But let me ask you a question. So the king created a bird. Now, there's laws that operate in the air, right? That bird cannot violate. If that bird violates those laws and says, you know what? Here's what we do as human beings. Man, I'm tired of doing this. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do when I want to do it with whom I want to do. You ever heard people say that? You might have said that before. You know what I'm saying? When I was young and dumb and stupid and ignorant, I say that too. Um, so anyway, that bird will not. There's birds that can actually go into the water and get some fish and come out. I've seen that before. You've probably seen that before in an animal, kingdom or some sort like that. But they can't stay down there. Why? Because they'll be violating their product, right? And the king is the manufacturer, and there's laws that are operating in that bird, and that bird cannot stay underwater, or else it will what? Die. So when we do certain things that violate this document over here called the Bible and his kingdom constitution, what do you think happens? Why do you think people die young? Right? Now, some, I'm talking about outside of murder or something like that, right? Um, but, a lot of times that people end up cutting their life short is because we're violating laws, and ignorance actually is not bliss. Ignorance actually, see, that's why you have to understand that laws have no respect of a person, because somebody, let's say, born in the jungle and they never dealt with electricity before and comes to a world or a country that has electricity, and they stick their knife, in that socket. They don't know what it is. When them volts hit that person, it can kill them, right? Now that person ignorantly didn't know. Nobody told that person, right? But does that the laws of electricity, they don't have any, they have no respect over persons, right? So that person can die, and stuff like that's happens every day, probably even while I'm talking around the world, right? So what's my point is that the king created and sowed into us, into our spiritual, soulful, um, physical body, circuitry of success, and it's all law based. So as I said yesterday, if you're caught up in something, if things are going disjointed, you ever seen somebody playing football or playing some type of sport, and let's say, say for instance football, and they tackle somebody or somebody tackles them and they hit the ground on their shoulder, and you ever see them get up and grab their shoulder with their other arm, that means their arm was taken out of socket, right? Now I've never had that before, but I've had a muscle pull up there, and I'm gonna tell you, that's one of the worst. That's some of the worst pain. And but that person goes to the sideline, and you have the people, the physicians and everything, and all the staff try to come out there and help that person, right? To that go over to the sideline so they can pop it back in place. So the point I'm trying to make is that it was disjointed. So if your life is disjointed, what you need to do is you need to go into that document and find out, okay, what laws am I breaking? Okay, it may take you some time. Be honest with yourself. Okay. Now, if you don't, you say, well, I'm not partial to, to this kingdom citizen. That's okay. Just keep listening. I'm going to help you. If you follow me, if you, no, not follow me. If you walk with me, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you not only who you are, that's identity, but I'm going to show you what you can do. Those are your gifts inside you. I'm going to show you where you're from, right? Which I already told you some of where you're going, what's your vision, what seed of a vision was put inside you, and why you're here, which is purpose. I run into people all the time that they have no idea. That includes people in my blood family, um, well, close knit, blood family and everything like that. I believe because all of us came out of the first man Adam, we all have different types of DNA. It's amazing how, if you know some of your lineage, physically speaking, you go all the way back and you see, if you can see some of the photos, like I seen my great 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 grandfather, three greats, and he's actually from London. He's white, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got some features like him. That's crazy. That's you talking about maybe 1850s, maybe a little bit before that. So, you're talking about almost 200 years ago. But anyway, so yeah, so that's the simple concept of what Christ the King did. He wanted us to rule down here and in the natural realm, just like he's ruling up there in the kingdom of heaven. Now, let's go ahead and go to this next one. So what is a kingdom? Okay, what is a kingdom? So I'm just going to read this out verbatim. A kingdom is a territory. Didn't I say it was a territory? Okay, so he's ruling in the unseen. He wants us to rule here, right? If you're a dad, if you're a mom, you have some kids, right? You want them to do better than you did, right? Okay, so let me see. Let me just go ahead and finish that. A territory ruled by a monarch, okay, like a king or a queen, right? Forming a form of government. I said government, right? And that word is in Isaiah 9, 6 through 7 in the Constitution. Article 9 of Isaiah 6 through 7. So Isaiah 6 through 7 NIV. A government is mentioned in there, right? Okay. So a government known as a monarchy, its fundamental functions include exercising authority. That's what I talked about before. Enforcing laws. There we go. There's that law again. To govern its subjects. Okay. Now, when you see subjects, that means below. Sub means below. Now, this is in the natural they're talking about, right? But to understand, so and if you're a kingdom citizen, right, you have rights in meaning you're born again. Your name is written in the government records, right? In the government records, and so you're considered a kingdom citizen. So you have rights according to what that Constitution, the Bible I was telling you about. See, that's when I pray. Pray means to petition. Prayer is not a religious word. Prayer is actually means to petition. You heard petitioning before, petitioning the court. See, I told you it's a government, right? This is a kingdom within. Okay, let me back up. So laws to govern its subjects within, in this case, it would be citizens within a defined territory, ensuring the stability and functioning of a state and fostering a distinct identity through traditions and customs. Okay. So a territory is a specific geographical area over which a monarch exercises dominion and control. So we're kind of like mini monarchs, right? In the Bible, it says King of Kings. Well, who do you think they're talking about? They're talking about you and I. Now, let's just say, now the term in the Bible, people say born again, Calvary, and Calvary is you have to meet the king, okay? But the number one thing you have to understand about this document called the Bible, this Constitution, is that there's a difference between public and private. There's a reason why the king didn't talk about his going to the cross publicly. He only mentioned it 2 or 3 times to his students that were following him. And I have to explain that at another time about what baptism really means. It basically means, without getting into the detail, it doesn't mean it's not a religious word. Okay. Now there's symbolic about being dunked in the water and everything, what happens, but it essentially means that it's a school, right? And then school has a master teacher. See, schools back then didn't have a building. The master teacher was the school. It was a mobile school, and you followed once you heard the master teacher's philosophy, right? What his philosophy was, and you bought into it, then there was a baptism that took place. But I don't have time to get into that right now. So, but a kingdom also has a legislative branch, right? Judicial branch, identity, culture, authority, and dominion. So that's where real government comes from. See, all the laws that we experience in the natural realm came from this book right here, this document right here. Okay. All law, land, air, water. What did I say? Put that in the chat box for me. What does law stand for? Land, air, water. Very, very, very significant. I don't care if you're one of my natural cousins in Africa. I'm about 70% as far as the natural standpoint, 70% African. Okay, West Coast, East Coast, got a lot of cousins. And probably even in Central, scattered all around the world in Africa, even though that's not her original name. I'm sure I got relatives all around the world. But listen to me, it doesn't matter what your situation is, what government, how righteous or unrighteous your government is, it doesn't matter. When you know these laws, I promise you, and you get a hold of this Kingdom Constitution book, and you say, you know what, Lord, I repent. I change my thinking and I ask for forgiveness. I want to meet you. I want to bow my knee. I want to get back into position because I was disjointed in my life. I was disjointed in my marriage. I was disjointed in relationships and finance and all this stuff like that, right? You got people chasing money, chasing titles, chasing all this stuff. The money doesn't even exist. I was talking to somebody earlier. It's once you start delving into that, it's fictitious. It's made out of thin air, but that's something else I'm gonna cover another time. Okay, you got to understand what that really actually means. What money actually really means and the whole purpose of it. It's not what you all actually always think. And what we were taught. So that's a whole nother topic in itself. So what does the word righteous mean? Righteous means it's a position. It means to be rightly aligned, right? Aligned with the king's laws. Okay. Now, this will help you out when you hit things in life. You can always say, "Oh, what is the law for this situation right here?" That's the only thing I do. So I do my best to assimilate this, right, and put this in my mind. So, because I can't carry my Bible everywhere I go, although you can put it up on your phone. But what if you can't get to your phone? You want the Bible. You want to be a walking, talking constitution, a king, a royal, sovereign king. Okay, and I only say king because in the spiritual realm there is no gender. Okay, that's why I say king. So I'm talking about the species called mankind. Okay, um, so righteous position means one where a person holds right standing with God and the king. See, there we go, embodying justice, compassion, obedience to a divine law, right? And all that has to do with morality, ethics, and stuff like that, right? Okay. So it's a lot more in depth into that. And at some point, maybe I'll just kind of take something, maybe I'll just kind of go down one rabbit hole, so to speak, and kind of delve into that to certain things because there's different aspects. If you can picture a tree, right? And maybe you're outside watching me, maybe you're driving watching me or something like that. You see a tree, there's different branches that branch off. But everything, all those branches, if you start from the top down, comes all the way back down to the root. And then that root goes back down to the, right? Well, it wouldn't be the seed because the tree came out of that seed, but you get what I'm trying to say. The roots, the cause, right? The foundation. Okay. So here's the significance of being right with Christ. Now, he cannot lie. If every human being, he says that in his constitution, I am not a man. So he's talking about mankind and species that can lie. See, we have the capacity to lie. We lie so much, it's ridiculous. And the worst person that we lie to is ourselves, right? I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it, right? That's why he said in Matthew 4:17 in NIV, repent. He's talking about our thinking, right? See, we trust in the lie in our own self and thinking that's going to get us a benefit, right? Especially lying to our own self about something, right? But that's a whole nother topic. So if we stay rightly aligned with his laws, we can literally petition, pray, go to the king and say, this is what you said right here in this article, in this section right here, and this is what I can have faith in. Faith just means belief. That's all it means, right? It's not some spooky wookie type thing, right? I didn't mean to say that, but hey, I probably made up something new. But that's not a spooky wookie, thing, ooh, or something like that. I know we're in Halloween. I don't celebrate Halloween because if you follow the roots with that, you'll see where that comes from, right? It's anti God. It's anti kingdom, right? It's anti or unrighteous. Okay. That comes from the aspect of the falling angel, formerly known as Lucifer. His name was Satan, right? And don't forget, Satan, formerly known as Lucifer, was part of that kingdom. He was in charge of the culture department, or the department of culture, or the ministry of culture. Did you know that ministry is actually not a religious word? It has nothing to do with religion. It's actually a government word. It's a law-based word, ministry is. Look it up, and you can look it up, a legal term or the law-based term. Look it up in the Black's Law, 4th edition. Look it up there, okay? So to stay righteous. Next, let's look at this other term right here, a kingdom citizen. Now, if you're not a kingdom citizen, if your name is not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, then guess what? You're illegal, okay? You're illegal, okay? That's why Christ had to come back in the form of the flesh called Jesus, because he had to redeem us. He had to buy us back from Satan to get us back to what? Genesis 1:26. So this is like NASCAR. It's coming back around. See, the king is going to have his kingdom, right? You should run a cross reference in the Constitution. I'm talking about the Bible. And by the way, the Constitution Republic in the natural, the Bill of Rights and the whole Constitution is all predicated upon the Bible. Okay? Congress said that. Okay? But anyway, that's a whole other topic. So you see this, it's intertwining from the spiritual realm, the soulish realm, and the natural realm. All three. We're a triune being. You got to keep that in mind, right? We understand and we get information, and we emit information. We broadcast information on 3 different levels. Okay? Now, so a kingdom citizen refers to a person typically who has submitted their life to God's authority, accepting Jesus Christ as their Lord. What does Lord mean? Owner, ruler. If you're renting, guess what? That means you are under a landlord. Now, I'm not going to get into this, but I'll do it a little bit later on. Even if you have a mortgage. Mortgage means death grip in Latin. Mortgage, yes, it means death grip in Latin. But if you understand something, you can own something, and it's only by creation, by definition. So mankind didn't create anything but iniquity, but sin. That's the only thing. And sin means to rebel. Sin has nothing to do with religion. It means to rebel. It means to commit anarchy. You can't commit anarchy and rebel in a religion. Let me say that again. You can't commit anarchy or rebel in a religion. You can only do that in a what? In a government. And the king, wherever the king goes, he is the government. He's the embodiment of a government, right? So if you're a kingdom citizen, we have rights, okay? And that precious blood of Jesus cleanses us, our conscience, right? So you don't have to walk around guilty. How many people in life are walking around guilty? And what I mean by that, just what I did in the past, what I did here. Listen, you can't change the past. The past is what it's said, the past. If you're going on a one-way street and you went all the way straight and there's people coming behind you, you've already passed, let's say you passed the address, you can't go back. You got this whole row of people. You see what I'm saying? That's what the whole blood is for. Why? He's trying to get us to go. He's trying his best because this is his colonization project. I know we were taught that colonies are bad, but they're not if you're under his kingdom. See, I'd rather be under a kingdom, his righteous kingdom, because he's a righteous king, right? I can tell you many stories, spiritually, mentally, physically, that happened to me that are like, whoa, that'll blow your stinking mind. But I'll say that for another time. In every area of my life, I can tell you, right? But anyway. So that Lord means owner, ruler. So essentially, when you look in the Constitution, it says Lord of Lords. Who do you think are the small lords, small caps? That's us. Okay. If you're a kingdom citizen. If you're not a kingdom citizen and you're part of a religion, I feel sorry for you because you're in trouble. Because religion is based upon works. You're imperfect. I'm imperfect. Right? So you're going to mess up. But in a kingdom, if it's based upon the laws, which he says in his Constitution right here, guess what? I'm a kingdom citizen. I have rights according to the Constitution. I can go to my king and say, hey, you said this, and I'm expecting this. That's what he wants us to do. When your kid is hungry, the child's 1 or 2 years old, right? And the child says, I'm hungry, right? Your niece, your nephew, whatever. And see, you want your child
to, or niece or nephew, whatever, to verbalize that and say, hey, I'm hungry, because you don't know, right? And what do as the grown up, as the guardian? You go get the child some food and drink. You see what I'm saying? That child knows his or her rights, right? You said that you're going to buy me this for Christmas. We've all used that against our parents or whoever was our guardians, right? Because that word that came out of that guardian, we remembered, and that word was law to us as a little child, even though we didn't know it, right? That word, that unseen word, came to our into our mind, planted a seed, an idea, and says, oh, well, this is a law, even though we didn't know it. And they said they're going to give me this, so it's already mine. They're already thinking about it. Oh, it's Christmas time. Where's my bike at? You see what I'm saying? So anyway, I've gone on, but golly, 40 something minutes. Okay. So I got to wrap this thing up, guys. I got to get out of here. There's a few more things I'm going to cover next week. I'm going to continue this next week. You guys have a great night. And remember, if you are a kingdom citizen, get in there, get in this book, this constitution, find out what belongs to you, study concepts of kingdoms. If you aren't a kingdom citizen, keep listening, keep watching. I guarantee you this is going to unravel some things and some questions that you had in your mind, and some things that you may be angry about, rageful about, you're impartial to, you don't want to mess with. I tell you I've told you many times, the Bible is not about a religion. It's about a kingdom. It's about a government. And that kingdom mandate, whether you know it or not, if you're not a kingdom citizen, if you're not born again, is actually already inside of you. And the reason why you're sick on the inside, no matter how much money you have or don't have, and you still, that thing is still clawing at you, is because the king wants you to go back to his kingdom, right? To be under his kingship. He wants you to have dominion, and he wants you to make your area of life, by using the talents and abilities to help other people, okay? And that gives him the credit, okay? And that empowers you, right, to help other people, okay? That's the whole purpose of this whole colonization idea, all right? So you guys have a great night, and remember, your future's not ahead of you. It's trapped on the inside of you in the form of a seed. You got to get it in the right environment. You guys have a great night. Till next week, Tuesday night, 7 p.m.